This is the SOMA Cosmos, an interesting effects pedal from SOMA Laboratories that's based upon delays, looping, and frippatronics. And it also comes with multiple firmwares that change a lot of the functionality of the pedal. So in this video, I'm going to go through all of the algorithms in both the main and the Rhythmic firmware. Using my pocket guide here, we're going to go through all of the different algorithms and find out what it's all about and what it's capable of. So if you own a SOMA Cosmos, then you can go to my Patreon and you can get your own copy of this little pocket guide that I've made. Or if you don't own a SOMA Cosmos, this might give you an idea of the types of things that it can do. Even though there's quite a minimal front panel on the Cosmos, it actually does a lot of different things. So there are two manuals, one for the main firmware and then a small extra guide for the Rhythmic firmware. And these contain quite a lot of information about the different types of algorithms that are available on the Cosmos and what the different buttons do in the different algorithms. And that's quite a lot to hold in your head. So I decided to try and summarize the user manuals into a small guide that I would have that I could refer to. So I made this small, I'm calling pocket guide for the SOMA Cosmos. I've produced this as a PDF, and if you go to my Patreon, my newly minted Patreon, and you sign up to either a free account or a paid account, you will get access to my SOMA Cosmos pocket guide. And then you can print it out and put it on a bit of cardboard like I've done. This isn't my SOMA Cosmos, it's a friend's, and I've borrowed it to find out what it's all about and to see what it can do. It is essentially an effects pedal that has a stereo in and a stereo out, and you can use it on the floor like a normal foot pedal, or you can use it on the desk, a desktop effects box, because these buttons are easy to press. It has a volume in and a volume out control. And then it has a mix between, it's a wet and dry mix between what's going on in the pedal and your dry signal coming in to go through. Then it's got a feedback setting. So this is like your frippatronics where you're sending the signal back to the input. So it goes through again. And at 1 there, you're sending the full signal back through. So presumably it would never fade at 1. It would always stay fairly static. And any lower than 1 is going to fade out. And you can go higher than 1. It's 32-bit floating point, so it's got a lot of headroom and it can cope with being overdriven quite a lot, which is something that I'm going to obviously explore when I'm testing some of these algorithms. And it does have a drive control where it adds a tape style saturation to the sound. So you can feed it back, you can overdrive it, you can run it, you know, past the limits. I think that's the general feel that you get of it. And it has here this suppressor compressor setting. More to the left means that the recorded sound is going to be suppressed for new sound coming in. Or if you put it more towards the clockwise to the compressor side, all the sounds are going to be kept high. So the recorded sound will still be quite high in the mix. And so then you've got the main algorithm here, which has 12 settings grouped into 4 groups of 3. And then these algorithms are different in the 2 firmwares, the main and the Rhythmic. There are in fact more firmwares than the 2. There is a quadraphonic firmware where you can link 2 Cosmos units together and have 4 in, 4 out. And there are also variations on the main and the Rhythmic which change the function of this drive knob and turn it into a pitch shifting knob instead. I tried those briefly when I was downloading the different firmwares. The pitch button seemed to introduce some artifacts, digital artifacts, into the recording. So I'm not going to use those and talk about those. I'm going to leave it as the main and the Rhythmic versions with the standard drive button. That's all I'm going to look at here. So that's the main setup. And then here you've got a record, reverse, erase. They're kind of normal looper type buttons. And you've also got a high pass filter and a low pass filter to color the recorded sound slowly over time. And they've got different settings on them. But essentially that is the setup of the Cosmos. SOMA Laboratories is a really interesting company. They make all sorts of devices, instruments, effects. The only other thing of theirs I've used is their drum machine, the Pulsar 23, which I did have for a while. I bought it, but I only had it for a short time because in the end I decided it was too expensive. And to be honest, I just couldn't afford it at the time. So I sent it back. I did make some music with it, and there are a couple of videos that I made using the Pulsar 23. They make lots of other interesting instruments, quite a few that I'd really like to have a go with. There's a stringed instrument called the Divina, and I'd love to have a go with the Lyra 8 synthesizer. Any of their instruments, really. They're a really interesting company. And this is their drifting memory station, their looped based effect pedal. The Cosmos is a very esoteric instrument, effects box. It says on here, drifting memory station. If we look at the description from the manual, Cosmos is a drifting memory station designed to work with meditative states through music. The design of the controls, functions, and generated soundscapes are intended to evoke in both performer and listener states and experiences inherent in meditation, such as limitless space, fluidity, spontaneous development, presence, the ability to hear, tranquility, the experience of subtle harmony, and happiness enveloping the whole world. SOMA instruments often have this kind of explanation. They're about performance, they're about getting into flow states, they're about removing barriers to playing and having, you know, transcendental experiences while you're making music. And that's great, it's really good. But it does mean when you get hold of the Cosmos, I mean, the controls and functions were carefully selected and tuned in such a way that the performer can remain as focused as possible on their music and inner experiences, with minimal distraction from interactions that require the inclusion of the superficial rational mind, which inevitably leads to falling out of the meditative state. So it's really talking about being able to create with this in an intuitive way and enter flow states with your work, which is great, but because it's so minimal on the front, it's hard, I think, to move between using the Cosmos and then opening the manual all the time to find out what's going on. So for me anyway, when I get a new instrument like this, I like to kind of know what's possible before I start using it, which is why I made this little guide, because everything's down here and I can just refer to it very quickly. And there are so many different types of effects that it helps me a lot to get an overall feel of what this thing is capable of. I'm going to go through these effects very quickly, just run through what's possible. I'm going to plug my guitar in, look at each one, play some notes and see what happens. In terms of the algorithms, the two main firmwares, in my little diagram here, the black writing is for the main firmware. The green writing is the Rhythmic firmware. And then depending on which of these algorithms you're in, these two buttons, the blur and the drift, they do different things. So if we start with the main firmware, then this quadrant here is a 2-line delay. And this first smaller circle is 2.5, roughly 2.5 seconds. The middle dot is 9.5 and the large dot is 22 seconds. And then in the second quadrant, you can see that's two delays, 4 delays. So you've got 4 delay lines in the second quadrant, and the times on those are 2.5, 8.5 and 11.5 seconds. On the delay settings, the blur, which is shown in orange on my little diagram, does cross feedback. So cross feedback between the delays. And the drift button adds a panorama LFO. I'm not really sure what that is, whether that's some kind of panning thing. So we'll find out what that seems to do. Then on the third quadrant in the main firmware, we've got a giant reverb. So 3 sizes of giant reverb: huge, super huge, and insanely super huge. So you've got 3 reverbs, huge reverbs, and in this mode, these buttons don't do anything. So the blur and the drift don't do anything in the giant reverb. And then the fourth quadrant on the main software is a granular delay. Small grains, medium grains, large grains, essentially. And the blur and the drift here, they're a modulation effect on the grain position. So the blur uses a noise source to modulate the grain position, and the drift uses an LFO. So that's the main firmware. And then if you switch over to the Rhythmic firmware, which is quite easy to do, you just put you download these files onto your SD card, pop them into the flash drive here, and turn on the unit with that in, and it will switch over to the other firmware. The Rhythmic firmware has a completely different setup. So in green here, in this first quadrant, the Rhythmic firmware is a looper, a normal looper, but it has a bit of a twist. The left and the right hand are different lengths for the different settings. So in this first small dot, you get a 1-to-1 ratio, so they're both the same. And then in the middle dot there, the ratio between the lengths changes. You record a certain length, and then this side will be in the ratio 8-to-7, so 7/8 of the length of this side. So that's quite interesting. And then in the on the third, the large dot, the ratio is 4-to-3 in terms of length. That will be 3/4 the length of that side. So they'll go in and out of sync with each other over a number of repetitions. And then when you get into this second quadrant here on the Rhythmic software, you get, it's called a random Mangler. I have no idea what that does, so it'll be interesting to see what the random Mangler is. And they have different ratios as well. That's an 1/8, a 1/6, and a 1/5. So I don't know what they are. And then these 2 settings, first 2 in the third quadrant, are a crazy random Mangler. So very descriptive titles, the random Mangler and the crazy random Mangler. So I'm quite excited to see what they are. And you've got an 1/8 and a 1/6, the different ratios on those 2 crazy random Mangler settings. And then this last one in the third quadrant is a Fractal Rhythmic pitch shifter. Not sure what that is either. And then in this fourth quadrant, what it does is it provides you 3 of the original algorithms from the main firmware as well. So we've got in here, we've got 4 delays, 2.5. So originally that was there, 4 delays, 2.5 was on this setting. In the Rhythmic firmware, that is put over here. On this middle dot here, you get the supergiant reverb, which was originally on this dot. So that's now been moved to there, supergiant reverb. And on this last one, you get large granular. So that's exactly the same. It stays the same in both firmwares. Also, the blur and the drift have changed function in the Rhythmic firmware. So all of these new algorithms, the blur becomes a reverb setting. I'm not sure what the drift does. It doesn't say what the drift does, but I'm presuming it probably retains its function from the delay lines. We shall see. It might do nothing, or it might have the panorama LFO on it still. Then in the crazy random mangler, the drift becomes octave down random shift. And in the fractal rhythmic pitch shifter, it becomes a shift, octave up and down shift setting. So that is a quick overview of all of the different algorithms and what we're going to go through now. So I'm going to plug my guitar in now, and I'm going to go through all of these different algorithms, and I'm only going to play very simple stuff just so that we can see if we can get a grasp of what the unit is doing to sound in each of the settings. So I've now got my guitar set up, Yamaha Pacifica. I've only plugged it in once or twice. I haven't been around all these algorithms, so it's new for me. So I'm going to attempt to just try and get the essence of what each algorithm can do quite quickly, and then move on to the next, so that the video doesn't get too long. So I've got my guitar set up. It's running through my Boss looper, the RC600. And I'm just using that as an effects unit. So it's got a little bit of overdrive and compression on it. So this is what it sounds like. This is running through the Cosmos, and it's not recording at all. So this is just going to be the dry sound. So I've just got a nice clean tone. So first off, we're going to start here on the main firmware. We're in the 2 delays section. So in the 2 delays section, we've got a 2.5, a 9.5, and a 22-second delay. And then the blur and drift are cross feedback and panorama LFO. If you press the record button here, it's got different settings that you can use this select button to select. So by selecting that, you move through all the different options, and they are record on both channels, record on just the left, record on just the right. So I'm going to start by just recording on the left. So this is recording now. I've got everything pretty much central. I've got no blur or drift. So we'll just see what happens when I put a note in to this. That's pretty much what you expect, I think. It's a delay. I've got it set to delay to 0.7, the feedback. So it's got quite a good feedback on it. And then you can switch this to record on the other channel. So they're not equal length, they're phasing in some kind of way. I mean, in the Rhythmic firmware, then you do get different ratios between the different sides, but I think you're getting that anyway. So I'm going to turn the feedback up now to 1, and I'm going to do the same thing. And then I'm going to play with the other settings, see what they do. So, recording on the left channel. Recording on the right channel. So I've recorded those 2 notes on each of the channels. You can see there is some phasing going on, different lengths. It's nice though. So this drift is the panorama LFO. So I think that's some kind of panning thing. So I'm going to try a bit of that. Yeah, so that's moving the sounds around in the stereo mix. It's nice. I'll leave that about halfway, and then I'm going to try this blur, which should be the cross feedback. So I feel like I'll just add a little bit until I can hear it. I presume that once you've hit the blur, that's it, it's baked into your 2 delay lines then. You're crossing over the delay lines, and so you want to just sparingly add in blur, I imagine, otherwise it's going to become quite muddy. Okay, so I'm going to record a similar thing now. We're on the 9.5 setting, and I'm just going to quickly record a couple of notes, and then we're going to mess about with these settings and see what we can get. So record on the left channel. And record on the right channel. Okay, so we've got 2 notes in on the 9.5, and now I'm just going to turn everything up, see what it does. So blur, turn it right up, drift, turn it right up, drive, turn it just over halfway up. Bit of compression maybe. Let's see what we get. Probably take ages because it's quite a big loop. I might cut to the end result. Getting some nice artifacts of the saturation. It's almost making it around the loop now. That's very beautiful. Now I've backed the drive off a bit. It's quite nice. That's nice. That's a nice loop. You had a bit of reverb on that. Yeah, interesting. So we're now on the 22 seconds. I think if you built something up in the same way that we did with the 9.5, that would be really nice. But I think for this video, I'm going to try and fill the 22 seconds maybe a bit more. Maybe add 3 notes. So I'm going to start again and record some stuff into the loop. Record the left. I'm going to do the same on the other loop, on the other side. It's got a nice loop with quite a lot of space at the end. So let's see what happens if we whack all these up. A little bit of drive as well. Same as we did last time. Let's see what we get. Okay, so that is the 2 delays. Now we're going to move on to the 4 delays and see what we've got here. Let's have a go at the 2.5 second 4 delays. Let's record the left channel. Right channel. I feel like it's going up in volume very slightly, probably because of this compression setting. And that's just really nice anyway. That's so nice. Let's add in a little bit of drift. Some stereo. This is our panorama LFO, presumably panning. You can hear it's pretty good. And now let's add in some blur just till we hear a touch. Okay, so that's our 4 delays on 2.5 seconds. Very nice. So let's go for 8.5 seconds. It will have some in here still. So it is recording and using, I don't know whether it's just, it must be recording all the time into its memory. And then it can use those in longer versions. I'm not quite sure how that works. Because now I've moved from 2.5 to 8.5. There's a lot of material there. Let's have a quick go on the 8.5. Okay, so I've got quite a bit in there now. So I've been messing about with all of these settings: reverse, erase, blur, drift, drive, and I've got this kind of complex soundscape. And then if you hold down the record for 5 seconds, it should drop it to half the speed. Oh, it's doubled it. It must have been at half speed. So now it's at double speed. It's quite nice. Let's fade it out. Okay, so we're going to go up to the top 4 delays, 11.5. Let's record onto both channels simultaneously here and see what happens. If I'm at normal speed, this should go down now. That's nice. So I was working at half speed the entire time up until this point. Let's add in some blur and drift now to this one. I feel like it's the sort of box that you really, it does slow you down because you want to listen and see what's going on. I'll back these off again now. It does slow you down, it makes you listen a lot and you're not completely sure what's going on, which is nice. I like that. I think that what's hard is to keep it not adding too much in and to keep it quite minimal. I've put the low pass and high pass filter on, and it's fading now. I think the thing that I've learned so far by going halfway around this is that the blur particularly seems to add in quite a lot, so you don't want it on all the time because it becomes too homogeneous. So you want to add some blur in, bits and pieces of blur. And the drive is quite vicious as well. If you turn the drive right up, so again, the drive, you want to be subtle with that. The drift I don't think is so bad, not with this panorama anyway. So that's where I'm at now. And now I'm going to move on to the giant reverb. We've got a huge, a super, and an insane. I might play a chord in and see what we get with the giant reverb. This is giant reverb, huge. So it's slow, it's like multiple delays, I think, that is slowly blurring into a reverb type effect. These don't do anything in this setting. You'd probably put drive in still. Balance the feedback with the drive, maybe. So if you drop the feedback but you put the drive up, then the drive is constantly reinforcing it. You get that just right. It looks like you can just get it more and more distorted. Okay. Huge drone. Right. Let's move up to a super-sized giant reverb. This time I'm going to just use a single note. Similar kind of effect that you get in some of the settings on Supermassive, Valhalla Supermassive. It's kind of multiple delay lines that are blurring into a reverb. Very nice. Okay, so that was the super giant reverb. So these are good for drones. So now I'm going to go for the insanely huge giant reverb. and I'm probably going to play a few more notes into this. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to have a look at the Granular, which is the last quadrant on the main software. So Granular, we've got the blur and the drift. The blur is grain position using a noise modulation, and the drift is the grain position using an LFO, a complex LFO. So that's what we've got on those. And then we've got small, medium, and large with an extra central line or something. So let's have a go. Small, granular. Let's record into both channels without any blur or drift or feedback. If we add some feedback in, it's nice. So it's a very long, similar to the giant reverb, a very long, so it feels like a granular reverb built out of delays. So, grain position. Let's add in a bit of this. Ooh. That's just on the decay. Take a bit out. This is reminding me of the hologram microcosm straight away. Which is really the only, apart from VSTs, the hologram microcosm is the only complex delay reverb pedal that I've used apart from this Cosmos. And up to now, it's been more about a Frippertronics kind of style. Really nice big giant reverb type effect and the delay line. So more like a kind of complex Frippertronics settings. But this is different. This is more like the microcosm. So that's just got a little bit of the noise modulator. Let's have a look at the LFO modulator. Okay, so I think if I put a little bit of these in and then go for a really long feedback. This is definitely my kind of effect. Let's just whack it right up. Okay, I'm going to try something very sparse with this. I'm going to record to each side. Two very short notes. Nice. Again, I've balanced the drive. If you put the feedback slightly lower than 1, you can bring in more drive. Not bad for 2 notes. Right, okay. Let's do something similar with the medium granular. I think it's a lot smoother. So it's the grain size that is larger. Okay, so let's put a bit of this in, a bit of grain positioning in, and see what we get now. Okay, and then large with a central extra line in. So we see what we get here. Cool on both. You get a really nice reverb out of that if you don't add in the grain positions. Let's try again. And then let's add in a bit of this. So grain position noise. Grain position LFO. So that gives us an overview of the main firmware. Some really nice settings in there. I particularly like the Granular, which reminded me of the microcosm. Lots of beautiful sounds. It's becoming clearer to me how it works. There's a lot of corners in there to explore. Yeah, a lot of fun. So I'm going to switch over to the Rhythmic software now, and then we'll do the same thing with the Rhythmic. So this first quadrant here is just a normal looper. This one has a 1-to-1 ratio of the left and right channels. So let's record into the left-hand side, a single note. So it will record for as long as you want, I think. So if I don't hit record again, and it'll just record, eventually it'll get up to the maximum length. Yeah, there we go. Just recorded that into the left-hand channel. Okay, so let's clear that. And let's do a quick loop. So they're in sync, the left and right channels, whatever length you record this. Let's see just how quick we can record. Let's erase that. Let's see just how short we can make it. So once you've recorded the length, then you can just record over the top of it. And then, so we could just record into each side. So if we get rid of that, so you can build up left and right, equal lengths, whatever is the first recording that you make. Similar to most loopers. But then on top of that, we've now got, so this presumably is still the Panorama LFO. Yeah. So it adds panning. And then this is now a reverb. So a normal looper with a 1-to-1 ratio of left and right, and quite a nice reverb. If we move on to this second setting, now we should have the difference. So if I record for a count of 8, I should have 7 on the other side. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've set our loop. Let's see what we've got. Almost got it. Now the loop on the other channel should be shorter. much better to have the pedal on the floor so that you could just record loops. It's interesting though that automatically the second loop is a certain ratio of the first loop. It's very good. And then the third setting is a 4/3. So if we record a length this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch to the other channel. This is 3. That's 4. This is 3. So there we go, 4/3. Quite nice. So that is the basic looper with different ratios. Works quite well. Now we're into the random mangler. Now I have no idea what this is. I'm just going to go for half feedback. And in here, we've got, again, reverb, the same thing. So I'm going to leave a little bit of reverb on because that's quite nice. And a little bit of panorama. They're quite nice settings in this. So this 1/8 ratio, I presume, is to do with the two sides. And I'm going to hit a note on the random mangler and see what we get. That's the random mangler at an 1/8 setting. That's nice. Nice backing for something else. That would be nice. Okay, let's try a really fast record. So let's just record a little loop. And now we'll see what we've got. So these effects are non-destructive. Let's see if half speed works. There we go, half speed. Let's lay something else on. Random Mangler. Nice. Let's move it now to the 6th interval and see what happens. Just leave it running. Fifth. And now I'm just going to go straight over into the crazy random Mangler. Are you ready? Okay, so this has reverb still, but now this has become octave down shift. Let's record a longer note into both channels. Okay. That's nice, that's very nice. Crazy random Mangler. It doesn't sound like a crazy random Mangler. It sounds quite mellow. At a 6th interval ratio. And we're going to go straight into the Fractal Rhythmic pitch shifter, which is on here. Let's record into both channels.
So that was the Fractal Rhythmic pitch shifter. Not quite sure what's going on there. I'd have to spend some more time with that, but there was something good going on. I'm not sure what. So in the last part here, in the last quadrant, they're just things that we've already heard in the other ones. So that was a quick overview of the two main firmwares of the SOMA Cosmos, the main firmware and the Rhythmic firmware. I'd only used this briefly before this video just to work out how to load the firmwares and things. So this was a beginner's guide for me, really, just to go through all of the different algorithms and to get an overview and an idea of what this is capable of. I think that's just a starting point for me. There's a number of things that I quite liked. The random manglers were quite nice to work with, as was the Granular in the main firmware. But the delay lines were nice too. And this Fractal Rhythmic pitch shifter, I'm not quite sure what was going on there. So that would need a bit more investigation. So as a starting point for me, that's been quite handy to get an overview of how the SOMA Cosmos works. It's quite a deep pedal, and I think you could lose yourself in it very much in the way that is described in the manual. And that's probably how I'll use it, producing soundscapes that I can then take into Ableton to turn into full tracks. But just with a handful of notes, it's making very beautiful things. So if you want to get hold of my SOMA Cosmos Pocket Guide, one for yourself, you can by going to my Patreon, my newly minted Patreon here, and
This video was actually available early on the Patreon, and going forward, I'm going to put all of my YouTube videos up slightly early. There's lots of other resources that I'll put up there as well. If you sign up for free, then you'll get things like this, resources that go along with my videos. If you sign up to one of the paid levels, you'll get early videos and preset packs and all sorts of things. So that's my Patreon. You can find the link in the description. You can go to my Substack where I write about everything that I'm doing. It's a newsletter, so you'll always find out what I'm up to on Substack. And of course, you can go to Bandcamp. If you do sign up to Patreon at one of the paid levels, then you will get a hefty coupon towards all my recordings. You can literally get all my music for a few pounds. So that's where you'll find me, and Patreon's where you'll find this. Okay, so I hope that has been of use to you. I will be using the Cosmos quite a bit over the coming weeks, so I'll probably do some more in-depth videos. I've got a few ideas about combining it with my RC600 as well. So, as usual, if you've got a Cosmos yourself and use it in a particular way, I've only been playing about with this for a couple of hours. So if you've had one for a while and you've learned how to use it, then please put your experience down in the comments. So I hope that's been useful for you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.